18 years. That's how long silence can stretch between a mother and her child. 18 years of birthdays she missed, scraped knees she didn't kiss, and bedtime stories I told alone. And now she stands at my door, dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than our monthly rent, asking for her son like he's a possession she left behind. The rain hammers against the windows as I watch her through the peephole. Elena, still beautiful, still carrying herself like the world owes her something. My hands shake as I grip the doorknob. Behind me, Marcus is doing homework at the kitchen table, 17 years old and completely unaware that the woman who abandoned us both has finally decided to come back. She knocks again, softer this time, almost hesitant. For a moment, I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. Then I remember the nights I held a crying baby alone, the parent-teacher conferences where I sat in chairs meant for two, the way Marcus used to ask why other kids had mommies and he didn't. I open the door. She smiles, that same smile that once made me believe in forever. Hello, David. Her voice is exactly the same. I know this is unexpected, but I'm ready now. I want to meet my son. Ready. After 18 years, she's finally ready. The audacity burns through me like acid. The sound of her heels against my hardwood floors is like a countdown to destruction. Click, click, click. Each step echoes through the modest living room I've called home for 18 years, the room where I rocked Marcus through countless sleepless nights, where we built blanket forts and watched Saturday morning cartoons, where we created a life without her. Elena stands in my doorway like she never left, like 18 years of silence was just a brief intermission in the symphony of our lives. Her designer coat catches the late afternoon light streaming through windows I installed myself last spring, when money was tight and Marcus needed new art supplies more than we needed a handyman. Everything about her screams success, the way she holds herself, the expensive perfume that fills the space between us, the confidence that only comes from having enough money to fix your mistakes. But I remember her at 19, standing in this same spot with scared eyes and shaking hands, when we were both just kids playing house with a baby we didn't know how to raise. I remember the girl who used to steal my hoodies and wear them like armor against the world. That girl is gone, replaced by this polished stranger who thinks she can walk back into our lives like she's returning from a business trip. David. My name sounds different in her mouth now. Practiced. Careful. Like she's been rehearsing this moment for years. I can't find words. 18 years of imagined conversations, and now that she's here, my throat feels like sandpaper. The silence stretches between us, heavy with everything we never said, everything I never let myself say out loud. That's when Marcus appears. He fills the doorway to the kitchen, all 6 feet 2 inches of him, homework forgotten in his hands. My breath catches. He's so tall now, taller than me, with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of the world. But it's his eyes that stop time, Elena's eyes, dark as midnight and just as mysterious, set in a face that mirrors my own stubborn jawline. For a heartbeat, the three of us exist in this strange tableau. Mother, father, son, the family we never got to be, frozen in a moment that feels both inevitable and impossible. Marcus, I say, and my voice sounds foreign even to me. This is Elena, your... The word sticks in my throat like a splinter. Your mother. I watch his face transform in slow motion. Confusion flickers first. This beautiful woman in expensive clothes can't possibly be the ghost that's haunted our conversations for years. Then recognition dawns, and with it, something harder. Something that looks like the armor I've watched him build, piece by piece, every time another kid asked why he didn't have a mom. He's heard the stories, not from me, never from me, but small towns have long memories and loose tongues. The woman who ran off to the city, the mother who chose freedom over family, the beautiful girl who broke David's heart and abandoned her baby. Elena takes a trembling step forward, tears already gathering in her eyes like morning dew. You're so handsome, she whispers, and her voice cracks on the words. You look just like him. Marcus cuts her off with surgical precision, nodding toward me. His voice is steady, controlled, but I can hear the tremor underneath. Yeah, people say that a lot. The rejection lands like a physical blow. Elena's face crumbles, all that practiced composure dissolving in an instant. She's 19 again, lost and scared, realizing that some things can't be fixed with money or good intentions or designer clothes. Marcus has already turned away, dismissing her with the casual cruelty that only teenagers can master. He walks back toward the kitchen, his homework clutched in hands that shake just slightly, the only sign that this moment has affected him at all. Elena looks at me with eyes full of pain and desperate hope. She wants me to fix this, to bridge the gap between her and the son she abandoned, but some bridges have been burned too completely to rebuild. He needs time, I say quietly, though I'm not sure time will be enough. She nods, wiping her tears with hands that still wear expensive rings. I know. I hoped. Hope doesn't undo 18 years of absence, Elena. The words hang between us like a verdict. Outside, the first drops of evening rain begin to fall against the windows, and I can't help but think that even the sky is crying for what we've lost. I should feel vindicated. This is what I always imagined, her return, his rejection, her finally understanding the magnitude of what she gave up, but standing here, watching her heart break in real time, I don't feel victorious. I just feel tired, bone-deep, soul-crushing tired. Because 18 years of raising our son alone has taught me that some victories feel an awful lot like losses, and some endings are just new beginnings in disguise. The rain gets harder, drumming against the roof like applause for a performance none of us wanted to give. 3 weeks. That's how long Elena has been camped out at the Riverside Inn, turning our quiet town upside down with her presence. 3 weeks of her showing up at Marcus's basketball games like a lost tourist, sitting in the bleachers with perfect posture and desperate eyes. 3 weeks of expensive gifts appearing on our doorstep, art supplies, designer sneakers, a laptop he doesn't need, all left untouched in his room like monuments to good intentions gone wrong. The meatloaf on Marcus's plate looks like it's been through a war. He stabs it with his fork like it personally offended him, each jab punctuating his frustration. She thinks she can just waltz back in, he says, and the bitterness in his voice makes my chest tight, like she's been on some extended vacation instead of completely gone for my entire life. Through the kitchen window, I can see the Riverside Inn's neon sign flickering in the distance. Elena is probably sitting in her rented room right now, staring at her phone, waiting for a text that will never come. The thought should satisfy me, but it doesn't. Yesterday she showed up at Mitchell's art supply when I was working, Marcus continues, his fork scraping against the plate. Bought $300 worth of paints and brushes. Told Mrs. Mitchell she wanted to support my artistic journey. He makes air quotes with gravy-stained fingers. I don't even use oil paints. I want to agree with him. God, how I want to feed his anger, to validate every harsh word because it justifies the narrative I've carried for 18 years. The story where I'm the hero and she's the villain, where his loyalty to me proves that I was enough, that we were enough, that her absence didn't leave scars too deep to heal. But then I remember yesterday, standing outside Peterson's Hardware, watching her through the window of the coffee shop across the street. He was sitting alone at a corner table, holding a cup with both hands like she was trying to warm something deeper than her fingers. She looked small, fragile, like the 19-year-old girl who used to trace invisible letters on my chest when anxiety kept her awake. She's trying, I say instead, and the words taste like betrayal in my mouth. Marcus looks up from his demolished meatloaf, his dark eyes, Elena's eyes, flashing with something between hurt and disbelief. Trying? He laughs, but there's no humor in it. It's the laugh of someone who's learned not to expect much from the world. Dad, where was she when I broke my arm in 6th grade? Where was she when Jenny Morrison broke up with me sophomore year and I cried in the garage for 2 hours? Where was she when I needed help with algebra and you spent 3 hours at the kitchen table because neither of us understood fractions? Each question is a knife, sharp and precise. He's right. Of course he's right. I was there for all of it, the broken bones and broken hearts, the homework battles and growth spurts, the moments both big and small that make up a childhood. I was there when she wasn't, and that has to count for something. But I also remember the way her hands shook when she held him as a baby, like she was afraid she might drop something precious. I remember how she would stand over his crib for hours, not moving, just watching him breathe. I remember the nights she would wake up screaming from dreams she never talked about, and how she would sit in the rocking chair until dawn, staring at our son like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. She keeps showing up at my games, Marcus says quietly, pushing peas around his plate. Sits in the top row like she's trying to be invisible, but everyone knows who she is, everyone's talking. What are they saying? The usual small-town stuff, that she's back for money, that she wants something from us, that she's going to hurt you again. He looks up at me with eyes that seem too old for 17. Are you going to let her? The question catches me off guard. Am I going to let her hurt me again? The answer should be simple. I should be armor-plated against Elena by now, protected by years of resentment and single parenthood and the knowledge that I survived her leaving once. But sitting here, watching my son process his own complicated feelings about the woman who gave him life and then disappeared, I realize that hurt isn't something you can prevent, it's something you survive, and maybe, sometimes, surviving it makes you strong enough to face it when it comes around again. I don't know, I tell him honestly. I don't know what she wants or why she's here or how long she's planning to stay, but I know that she gave you something I couldn't. What's that? Your talent. Your eye for color and composition and the way you see the world differently than everyone else. That came from her. Marcus is quiet for a long moment, considering this. Outside, the evening light is fading, painting our kitchen in shades of gold and shadow. The silence between us feels different now, not empty, but full of possibilities. Do you think she loves me? He asks suddenly, and his voice is small again, like the little boy who used to ask why other kids had mommies. The answer comes without hesitation. Yes, I think she loves you so much it scared her. Scared her how? I think about Elena at 19, overwhelmed by a love too big to understand, too intense to handle. I think about the way she used to look at Marcus like he was the sun, beautiful but dangerous to stare at directly. Some people don't know how to love without destroying themselves, I say finally. And some people think that leaving is the same thing as protecting. Marcus nods slowly, processing this new information. He's too smart for his own good sometimes, too willing to see the world in shades of gray when it would be easier to paint it black and white. She asked Mrs. Mitchell about you, he says suddenly. About what kind of father you've been. About whether you've been happy. The words hit me like a physical thing. Elena has been asking about me, about my happiness. After 18 years of silence, she wants to know if I'm okay. What did Mrs. Mitchell tell her? That you're the best dad in town, that you never missed a game, or a school play, or a parent conference, that you worked double shifts at the plant so I could take art classes. He pauses, studying my face. That you never dated anyone seriously because you were too busy raising me. The last part hangs in the air between us like an accusation. It's true, of course. There were women over the years, nice women who understood that Marcus came first, who didn't mind playing second fiddle to a teenager's needs. But none of them lasted, none of them could compete with the ghost of Elena, with the memory of what love felt like when it was everything. Dad? Marcus's voice pulls me back to the present. Do you still love her? The question I've been avoiding for 3 weeks hits me square in the chest. Do I still love Elena? After 18 years of anger and resentment and building a life without her, do I still love the woman who broke my heart and left me to raise our son alone? I look at my boy. Our boy, and see Elena in the curve of his smile, in the way he tilts his head when he's thinking. I see her in his artistic soul and his deep capacity for emotion and his ability to find beauty in broken things. Maybe I never stopped loving her, maybe that's been the problem all along. The rain starts just as I'm leaving Thompson's Hardware, the kind of sudden downpour that soaks you to the bone before you can run for cover. I'm fumbling with my keys, juggling a bag of screws and weather stripping when I see her. Elena stands under the awning of Patterson's Bakery across the street, but she's not looking for shelter from the storm. She's looking at me. Her face is streaked with tears that have nothing to do with the rain, and for the first time since she returned, she looks fragile, breakable. She crosses the street without regard for the puddles or the traffic, moving toward me with the desperate urgency of someone who's been carrying a weight too heavy for too long. He hates me, she says simply, stopping just close enough that I can see the mascara smudged beneath her eyes. Her perfect composure is completely gone, replaced by raw vulnerability that takes me back 18 years to a scared girl who didn't know how to be a mother. Did you expect anything different? The words come out harsher than I intended, sharpened by 3 weeks of watching her try to buy Marcus's affection with expensive gifts and public displays of regret. But I don't take them back. Some truths are sharp by necessity. She flinches like I've slapped her, but she doesn't retreat. I know what you think of me, David. I know what everyone in this town thinks, that I'm selfish, that I abandoned my family for some glamorous life in the city, that I chose freedom over responsibility. Her voice cracks on the last word. But you don't know. She stops, pressing her hand to her mouth like she's trying to keep the words inside. You don't know what it was like. The rain is coming down harder now, drumming against the awning above us like an impatient audience waiting for the show to begin. Water runs down Elena's face, mixing with her tears until I can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Then tell me, I say, and I'm surprised by how much I mean it. For 18 years, I've built my story around her absence, the selfish woman who ran away when motherhood got hard, the beautiful girl who chose herself over her family. But standing here, watching her fall apart in the rain, I realize I never asked for her version of events. I never wanted to know what drove her away, because knowing might complicate the narrative that sustained me for nearly 2 decades. The story pours out of her like water through a broken dam, fast and unstoppable and devastating in its honesty. I was 19, David. 19 and drowning, and everyone kept telling me that mothers are supposed to know how to love their babies instinctively, that it would come naturally, that the moment I held him, everything would make sense. She's shaking now, whether from cold or emotion, I can't tell. But I felt nothing but fear. I remember those early days differently. I remember her devotion, the way she would check on Marcus constantly, how she seemed afraid to put him down even for a moment. I thought it was love, I thought it was maternal instinct. I couldn't sleep, she continues, her voice barely audible above the rain. Not because he was crying, you handled most of that, remember, but because of the thoughts. Terrible thoughts about what I might do to him. What if I dropped him? What if I shook him when he wouldn't stop crying? What if I was one of those mothers you read about in the news? The words hit me like physical blows. Postpartum depression, mental health. These weren't things we talked about in our small town 18 years ago. They weren't things anyone talked about. I would stand over his crib for hours, watching him breathe, convinced that if I left the room, something terrible would happen. Not because the world was dangerous, but because I was dangerous. Because there was something wrong with me that made me incapable of feeling what other mothers felt. I think about all the times I found her there, motionless beside Marcus's crib. I thought she was being protective. I thought she was being loving. I never realized she was standing guard against herself. The day I left, she whispers, I woke up and looked at him, and for just a moment, I felt angry. Angry at this beautiful, innocent baby for existing. For needing me when I had nothing to give. And I knew I had to go before I did something unforgivable. The rain pounds against the pavement around us, creating rivers in the gutters and washing away the dust of summer. Elena stands there, soaked and shaking, having just confessed her deepest shame to the man she abandoned. I thought I was protecting him, she says finally. I thought I was protecting both of you from the broken thing I'd become. I thought you'd be better parents without me. I want to stay angry. Anger is so much easier than understanding. Anger doesn't require me to rewrite the story I've been telling myself for 18 years, doesn't force me to confront the possibility that I failed her as much as she failed us. But I remember those early days more clearly now. How Elena would hand Marcus to me the moment he started crying, like she was afraid of her own reaction. How she would disappear for hours, and I'd find her sitting in her car in the driveway, staring at nothing. How she always seemed to be holding her breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. I remember, and the anger starts to crack, letting in something more complicated and infinitely more painful. Compassion. You should have told me, I say, but there's no accusation in it anymore. Just sadness for the girl who suffered in silence, who thought her sickness made her dangerous, who chose exile over asking for help. I tried, she whispers. Do you remember? I kept saying I didn't feel right, that something was wrong with me. But everyone just said it was normal, that new mothers always feel overwhelmed, that I'd figure it out. I do remember Eleanor telling me she felt disconnected, that she didn't know how to be a mother. Me dismissing her fears as normal anxiety, telling her she was doing fine, that love would come with time. I remember thinking I was being supportive when I was actually silencing her cries for help. I was sick, David, really sick, and I was 19 and scared, and I didn't know what postpartum depression was, or that help existed, or that I wasn't the monster I felt like. She looks up at me with eyes full of 18 years of regret. I just knew that leaving was the only way to keep him safe from me. The rain is starting to let up, but neither of us moves toward shelter. We stand there in the growing twilight, surrounded by the wreckage of old assumptions and the possibility of new understanding. I've been in therapy for 10 years, she says quietly. I've learned about what happened to me, about the illness that made me feel like a stranger in my own mind. I've learned about the woman I was and the woman I became, and the mother I could have been if I'd known how to ask for help. Why now, I ask. Why come back now? Because Marcus is almost 18, because soon he'll be an adult, and if I don't try now, I might never get another chance. Because I spent 18 years believing I did the right thing, and I need to know if that's true. I need to know if he's better off without me. Standing there, looking at this woman who spent nearly 2 decades learning to live with an impossible choice, I realize that Elena didn't abandon us for freedom or glamour or any of the reasons I've imagined. She left because she was drowning, and she thought letting go would save us all from going under with her. The truth doesn't erase 18 years of her absence. It doesn't undo the nights I spent holding Marcus alone, or the questions I couldn't answer, or the family photos that were always incomplete. But it changes everything else. Lightning flashes in the distance, illuminating Elena's face for just a moment. She looks older now, worn by years of carrying guilt that was never entirely hers to bear. But she also looks free in a way she never did at 19, free from the secret that's been poisoning her for half her life. Does he need to know, she asks, about the depression, about why I really left? I think about Marcus, about his capacity for understanding and forgiveness, about his artist's ability to see beauty in broken things. Maybe, I say. Maybe he needs to know that leaving broke your heart too. The rain stops as suddenly as it started, leaving the world washed clean and smelling of possibility. But Elena and I remain standing there, processing the weight of truth and the complicated space between understanding and forgiveness. Some storms, I realize, have been building for years, and some storms clear the air just enough to let you see what was always there, waiting to be discovered. The ceiling fan spins lazy circles above my bed, its soft whir the only sound in the 2 a.m. darkness, but sleep is impossible. Elena's words echo in my head like a song I can't stop humming. Postpartum depression, 19 and drowning, I felt nothing but fear. For 18 years, I've been the hero of my own story. The devoted father, the man who stayed when she ran, the one who sacrificed everything for his son's happiness. But tonight, staring at shadows that dance across the ceiling like ghosts of decisions I never questioned, I'm beginning to wonder if I was as much of a villain as a victim. Mental health wasn't something we talked about in our small town 18 years ago. Hell, it's barely something we talk about now. Depression was something that happened to other people, weak people, people who couldn't handle what life threw at them. It wasn't something that happened to beautiful 19-year-old girls who should have been grateful for healthy babies and loving boyfriends. But what if I was wrong? What if Elena's distance wasn't indifference but illness? What if her quietness wasn't selfishness but suffering? What if every time she tried to tell me something was wrong, I dismissed her fears because they didn't fit the story I wanted to tell about our perfect little family? I think of all the nights I resented her, all the times I painted her as the villain in bedtime stories I told myself, the selfish woman who chose freedom over family, the heartless mother who abandoned her baby for bright lights and city life. But what if she was just a sick girl who thought she was protecting us from something worse? The guilt sits heavy on my chest like a stone. For 18 years, I've been angry at Elena for leaving, but I'm starting to realize I should have been angry at myself for letting her go without fighting for her, for not seeing that her withdrawal was a cry for help instead of a declaration of independence. The floorboards creak in the hallway, and I hear footsteps padding toward the kitchen. Marcus, awake like me, probably wrestling with his own complicated feelings about the woman who gave him life and then disappeared from it. I find him at the kitchen table, making coffee neither of us needs. The overhead light casts harsh shadows under his eyes, making him look older than 17. He's got Elena's hands, long fingers perfect for holding paintbrushes or basketball, but right now, they're shaking slightly as he measures grounds into the filter. Can't sleep either, he asks, without looking up. Too much on my mind. I settle into the chair across from him, the same chair where I helped him with homework for years, where we had countless father-son conversations about everything from algebra to heartbreak. But tonight feels different. Tonight we're not father and son discussing homework. We're two men trying to make sense of a story that's more complicated than either of us realized. She was sick, Marcus. When you were born, she was really sick. He looks up from the coffee maker, his dark eyes, Elena's eyes, searching my face for meaning. Sick how? Like cancer sick? No, sick in her mind, depressed, scared, convinced she was going to hurt you if she stayed. The words feel foreign in my mouth, like I'm speaking a language I never learned properly. It's called postpartum depression. It happens to new mothers sometimes, makes them feel disconnected from their babies, makes them think terrible things about themselves. Marcus is quiet for a long moment, processing this information. The coffee maker gurgles to life, filling the silence with its familiar domestic sound. Sick people don't just leave, Dad. But his voice lacks its usual conviction, like he's testing the argument more than believing it. Sometimes they do, sometimes sick people think leaving is the kindest thing they can do. I lean back in my chair, studying my son's face. Sometimes they think they're so broken that staying would be selfish. The weight of 18 years of assumptions settles between us like fog. All this time, I've been teaching Marcus that love means staying, that commitment means never giving up, that family means fighting for each other no matter what. But what if sometimes love means knowing when to walk away? What if Elena's leaving wasn't about not loving us enough, but about loving us too much to risk hurting us? She tried to tell me, I say quietly, more to myself than to Marcus. Those first few months, she kept saying something was wrong, that she didn't feel right. But I thought it was normal new parent anxiety. I thought she'd figure it out. Marcus pours coffee into 2 mugs, his movements careful and precise. He's always been deliberate like that, thoughtful in a way that reminds me of Elena when she was focused on her art. The realization hits me like a slap. He gets more from her than just his artistic talent. He gets his careful way of considering the world, his ability to see multiple sides of a story. Did you love her? He asks suddenly, setting a mug in front of me. The question catches me off guard, even though I should have expected it. Yes. The word comes without hesitation, surprising us both with its certainty. I loved her more than I knew how to handle. How do you love someone more than you can handle? I think about Elena at 19, beautiful and broken, and trying so hard to be the mother she thought she should be. I think about how much I wanted to fix her, to love her enough to make the sadness go away, to be everything she needed without understanding what she actually needed was help I didn't know how to give. When you're young, you think love is enough to solve everything, I say finally. You think if you just love someone hard enough, you can heal their pain, fix their problems, make them whole, but some things require more than love. They require understanding, professional help, medicine, therapy, things I didn't know existed when I was 21. Marcus nods slowly, considering this. He's inherited my stubborn streak, but he's also got Elena's emotional intelligence, her ability to feel things deeply and see beneath the surface of situations. Do you still, he asks quietly. Do I still what? Love her. The question I've been avoiding since she showed up at our door 3 weeks ago. The question that makes my chest tight and my hands shake and my carefully constructed defenses crumble like sandcastles at high tide. Do I still love Elena? After 18 years of raising our son alone, of building a life around her absence, of convincing myself that what we had was young foolishness rather than something real, do I still love the woman who broke my heart and left me to pick up the pieces? I look at my son, our son, and see her in every line of his face. I see her in his artistic soul and his deep capacity for empathy and his ability to find beauty in unexpected places. I see her in the way he considers his words before speaking, the way he tilts his head when he's thinking, the way he loves completely and without reservation. Maybe I never stopped loving her. Maybe that's been the problem all along. I don't know, I tell him honestly, because some truths are too complicated for simple answers. I don't know if what I feel is love or habit or just 18 years of wondering what if. I don't know if you can love someone who hurt you that deeply, or if what I'm feeling is just grief for the family we never got to be. Marcus reaches across the table and puts his hand on mine. His fingers are warm from holding the coffee mug, and for a moment he looks exactly like Elena used to when she was trying to comfort me. Maybe it doesn't matter, he says quietly. Maybe what matters is that you're both here now, trying to figure it out. Outside, the first hints of dawn are starting to creep across the sky, painting the kitchen window in shades of gray and possibility. We sit there in the growing light, father and son, drinking coffee and processing the weight of revelations that change everything and nothing all at once. Some questions, I realize, don't have easy answers. Some stories are too complicated for heroes and villains. And sometimes love isn't about staying or leaving, it's about having the courage to examine your heart and see what's really there, even when the truth is more complicated than the story you've been telling yourself for 18 years. The coffee tastes bitter in the pre-dawn darkness, but Marcus and I keep drinking it anyway because some conversations require fortification and some truths are worth staying awake for. The invitation comes on a Tuesday evening, handwritten on Marcus's letterhead from his art class. His penmanship is careful, deliberate, Elena's precision combined with my practical streak. Senior Art Show, Thursday 7 p.m. Hope you can make it. M. He leaves it on the kitchen counter without explanation, but I know what it means. After a month of polite distance and careful conversations, Marcus is ready to let Elena see the person he's become. Not just the hurt teenager protecting himself from further abandonment, but the artist, the young man who transforms pain into beauty. Elena arrives at Roosevelt High's gymnasium 30 minutes early, clutching the program like a lifeline. She's dressed carefully, not the designer outfits of her first few weeks back, but a simple black dress that doesn't scream expensive. She's learning, slowly, that Marcus isn't impressed by money, he's impressed by authenticity. The gymnasium buzzes with the nervous energy of proud parents and anxious students. 17 years of these events, and I still feel that flutter of anticipation in my chest. But tonight is different. Tonight Elena stands beside me, her hands shaking slightly as she surveys the room full of teenagers who've grown up hearing stories about her. There. Her voice is barely a whisper, but her eyes have found Marcus's corner like a magnet finding true north. His section draws the biggest crowd, which doesn't surprise me. Marcus has always had a gift for making people feel something, whether through his basketball game or his art, but seeing his work displayed like this, professional, mature, emotionally raw, makes my chest tight with pride. The paintings are abstract but deeply personal, swirls of color that somehow convey loneliness. Bold strokes that feel like anger. Gentle washes that whisper of hope. Each canvas tells a story, and together they create a narrative of growing up with questions that couldn't be answered and spaces that couldn't be filled. One painting dominates the display, it's larger than the others, more complex, more emotionally charged. A small figure stands in the center of the canvas, arms outstretched toward two larger shadows that loom on either side. The shadows are close enough to touch but separated by what looks like an impossible distance. The small figure reaches toward both but connects with neither, suspended in the space between belonging and abandonment. It's called Between, Marcus explains to a small group of admirers who've gathered around the piece. His voice carries the confidence of someone who's found his medium, his way of speaking truth through color and form. It's about existing in the space where things should be but aren't. Elena stands frozen in front of the painting, tears streaming down her face in steady rivulets. She doesn't try to hide them or wipe them away, she just stares at our son's interpretation of his own story, and I realize she sees herself in those shadows, present but unreachable, important but distant, part of the story but not part of the life. The crowd moves on to other pieces, but Elena remains rooted in place. Her breathing is shallow, rapid, like she's trying not to hyperventilate. This is what Marcus's childhood looked like from the inside, the constant awareness of absence, the reaching toward something that couldn't be grasped, the artistic soul trying to make sense of emotional complexity that most adults couldn't navigate. "It's beautiful," she whispers when the crowd disperses, her voice thick with tears and something that might be awe. "You're so talented, Marcus, more talented than I ever imagined." For the first time since she returned, Marcus looks at her directly. Really looks at her. Not the defensive glances or careful avoidance of the past month, but the full attention of someone who's decided to see the person in front of him rather than the ghost that's haunted his childhood. "Art teacher says I get it from my mom," he says quietly, his eyes never leaving her face. "Says creativity skips generations sometimes, but when it doesn't, it burns bright." The words hit Elena like a physical thing. She stumbles back half a step, one hand pressed to her mouth, the other reaching out as if to touch the painting, or maybe to touch the son who created it. "You remember," she breathes. "You remember that I used to draw." "No," Marcus says, and for a moment my heart breaks for both of them. Then he continues. But Dad kept some of your sketches, the ones you left behind. He put them in a box in the closet, and sometimes when I was little, I'd sneak looks at them. You drew me, when I was a baby. Drew me sleeping, drew me in Dad's arms, drew me crying. You drew me like you were trying to memorize me. Elena's composure finally crumbles completely. She covers her face with both hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs that come from somewhere deep and long-buried resentment. 18 years of guilt and regret and self-hatred pouring out in the middle of a high school art show. Marcus steps closer, not close enough to touch, but close enough to matter. The drawings are good, he says softly. Really good. Dad says you used to paint too, before I was born. I haven't painted in 18 years, Elena manages between sobs. I couldn't. Every time I tried, all I could think about was what I'd lost, what I'd given up, what I'd thrown away. Maybe, Marcus says, and his voice carries the careful wisdom of someone who's learned to live with complicated truths. Maybe you didn't throw it away. Maybe you just put it somewhere safe until you were ready to find it again. Something passes between them in that moment. Not forgiveness, that will take time, if it comes at all. But recognition. Artist to artist, creator to creator. Two people who understand that sometimes beauty comes from pain, and sometimes art is the only way to make sense of things that don't make sense any other way. Elena reaches out tentatively, her fingertips barely brushing the edge of Marcus's painting. Between, she repeats softly. That's where I've been living for 18 years, between the mother I was supposed to be and the woman I became, between love and fear, between staying and going. Yeah, Marcus says, and for the first time since she returned, his voice holds something other than anger or polite distance. It holds understanding. I know that place. They stand there together, mother and son, studying the painting that captures 18 years of emotional geography in swirls of color and careful brushstrokes. The gymnasium buzzes around them with the conversations of other families, other celebrations, other stories. But in their corner, Elena and Marcus exist in a bubble of possibility, connected finally not by DNA or obligation or guilt, but by the thing that's always been theirs to share, the ability to transform pain into something beautiful. I watch from a few feet away, my heart breaking and healing simultaneously. This isn't the reunion I imagined, if I ever let myself imagine one at all. It's messier, more tentative, full of careful steps and unspoken boundaries. But it's real in a way that Hallmark moments never are. Later, as the crowd thins and we help Marcus pack up his pieces, Elena approaches me. Thank you, she says quietly. For what? For raising an artist, for keeping my drawings, for not letting your anger turn him against me completely. She pauses, watching Marcus carefully wrap his paintings in protective paper. For being a better parent than I knew how to be. The admission sits between us like a bridge neither of us is quite ready to cross. But it's there now, solid and real, waiting for whenever we're brave enough to take that first step. As we walk out of the gymnasium together, not quite a family, but not strangers either, I catch Elena looking at Marcus with something I haven't seen in her face since she returned. Not just regret or guilt or desperate hope, but wonder. The kind of wonder you feel when you realize that love doesn't always look the way you expected it to, but it finds a way to exist anyway, in the spaces between what should be and what is. The news spreads through town like wildfire, the way all news does in places where everyone knows everyone else's business. Elena isn't just visiting, she's staying. The stranger at the Riverside Inn has signed a lease on the small studio apartment above Morrison's Bakery. She's started freelance graphic design work, her laptop set up at the corner table of Mel's Diner like she belongs there. Most shocking of all, she's enrolled in family therapy sessions with Dr. Martinez, the same therapist who helped Marcus through his rough patch freshman year. Jennifer Walsh corners me at the grocery store on a Saturday morning, her cart blocking my path like she's conducting an interrogation rather than a casual conversation. Some nerve, she says, shaking her head with the righteous indignation of someone who's never had to make an impossible choice. Showing up after all this time, thinking she can just insert herself back into that boy's life. He doesn't need her now, David. He's got you. He's always had you. I want to agree with her. God, how I want to fuel the town's disapproval, to let their judgment validate the narrative I've carried for 18 years. But standing there in the cereal aisle, surrounded by the mundane normalcy of weekend shopping, I realize that Jennifer's words don't feel like vindication anymore. They feel like pressure. Maybe it's not about need, I say quietly, loading a box of Marcus's favorite granola into my cart. Maybe it's about choice. Jennifer's eyes widen like I've just confessed to a crime. Choice? David, that woman abandoned her child, abandoned you. What kind of choice is there to make? But as much as it terrifies me to admit it, I know the choice has to be Marcus's to make, not mine, not the town's, not Jennifer Walsh's. His. Elena starts small, testing the boundaries of what Marcus will accept. She offers to drive him to Dr. Martinez's appointments when my work schedule conflicts, bringing him coffee from the new place downtown that does the fancy lattes he pretends not to like. She shows up to his basketball games, sitting in the same spot in the bleachers week after week, cheering quietly when he makes a good play, but never drawing attention to herself. She's persistent, Marcus admits one evening as we clean up after dinner. Kind of annoying, actually. Your mother always was stubborn. The words slip out before I can stop them, casual and easy, like Elena is just another fact of our daily life rather than the ghost who's haunted our conversations for years. But Marcus doesn't flinch at the reference. He doesn't get that carefully blank expression he used to wear whenever her name came up. Instead, he just nods, considering this new information about the woman who's slowly, carefully inserting herself into the edges of his world. She asks about you, he says, scraping leftover meatloaf into a container. About us. About what it was like growing up here. My hand still on the dish I'm washing. What do you tell her? The truth. He looks at me with those dark eyes that are so much like hers. That you never said a bad word about her, not once, even when I was angry and wanted you to. The pride in his voice makes my chest tight with emotion I don't know how to process. 18 years of biting my tongue, of choosing love over bitterness, of refusing to turn my son against his mother even when she wasn't there to defend herself. I did it because it was right, because Marcus deserved better than a childhood poisoned by adult resentments. But I never realized he noticed. I never realized he was paying attention to the things I didn't say as much as the things I did. She cries sometimes, Marcus continues, drying plates with the methodical precision he brings to everything. When she thinks I'm not looking. At games, mostly, when I make a good play, or when coach pulls me aside to talk strategy. Like she's proud but sad at the same time. I think about Elena in the bleachers, watching her son excel at a sport she never taught him, cheering for achievements she didn't help him reach. The pride mixed with grief, the joy tainted by regret. It would be easier if she were indifferent, if her return was motivated by guilt or social pressure or some selfish need to assuage her conscience. But watching her genuine emotion, her careful respect for the boundaries Marcus sets, her obvious love for the young man he's become, it's complicated in ways that make my heart ache. She keeps asking Dr. Martinez about family counseling, Marcus says quietly, all three of us together. Says she wants to understand what she missed, wants to learn how to be part of our lives without disrupting what we've built. The idea of sitting in Dr. Martinez's office with Elena, unpacking 18 years of hurt and healing in front of a professional mediator, makes my stomach clench with anxiety, but it also sparks something that might be hope. What do you think about that? I ask. Marcus is quiet for a long moment, considering his words with the careful deliberation that's become his trademark. I think, he says finally, that I'm tired of being angry. It's exhausting, carrying all that resentment. And I think maybe she's tired too. Later that evening, after Marcus has gone to bed, I find myself walking past Morrison's bakery. Elena's apartment is on the second floor, and I can see light from her window casting rectangles of gold onto the sidewalk below. She's probably working, hunched over her laptop at a desk she bought at the second-hand furniture store. Building a life in the town she left 18 years ago, trying to earn a place in the story she walked away from. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number, but I know who it is before I read it. Thank you for raising him to be kind. I stare at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. There are 1,000 things I could say. 18 years of anger and hurt and questions that have never been answered, but in the end, I keep it simple. Thank you for coming back. The response comes immediately. I should have come back sooner. Maybe, or maybe this is exactly when you were supposed to. 3 dots appear and disappear, like she's typing and deleting responses. Finally. Do you really believe that? I look up at her window, wondering if she's looking down at me, if she can see me standing on the sidewalk like a teenager trying to work up the courage to call his crush. I'm starting to. The light in her window flickers, and for a moment I think I see a shadow move across the glass, then my phone buzzes again. Would you be willing to try the family counseling, all three of us? I know I don't have the right to ask, but… Yes. The word sends before I can second guess it, before I can think of all the reasons why sitting in a room with Elena and Marcus and Dr. Martinez is a terrible idea. But maybe some decisions are meant to be made with the heart instead of the head. Really? Really? But this is Marcus's choice to make. His timeline, his boundaries, his rules. Of course, always. I put my phone away and start walking home, past the familiar storefronts and quiet streets of the town that shaped all of our lives. Behind me, the light in Elena's window stays on, and I imagine her sitting at her desk, maybe crying a little, maybe hoping a lot, maybe finally allowing herself to believe that some bridges can be rebuilt even after they've been burned. Tomorrow I'll tell Marcus about the texts, about my willingness to try family counseling, about the possibility that healing is messier and more complicated than any of us expected. Tonight, I'll lie in bed and think about second chances and the courage it takes to examine old wounds and the strange way that love persists even when it's been buried under years of hurt. Some competitions, I realize, aren't about winning or losing. They're about showing up, staying present, and trusting that the people you love will make the choices that are right for them even when those choices scare you. Even when they change everything you thought you knew about your own story. The letter arrives on a Tuesday morning, thick and official, the Rhode Island School of Design logo embossed in gold at the top. My hands shake as I hand it to Marcus, watching his face transform as he reads the words we've both been dreaming about for years. Full scholarship, early admission, his future spread out in front of him like a blank canvas waiting for the first brushstroke. Dad, he whispers, and his voice cracks like it did when he was 13 and trying to tell me about his first heartbreak. I got in, full ride. I pull him into a hug that feels like every proud moment of the last 18 years rolled into one. This is what we worked for, the art classes I paid for with overtime shifts, the portfolio reviews that cost more than our monthly grocery budget, the college prep courses that meant eating ramen for weeks. This is the dream we built together, one sacrifice at a time. I'm so proud of you, I tell him, and the words feel inadequate for the size of what I'm feeling. The news spreads through town within hours, small-town gossip moves at the speed of light, and by evening, Elena is at our door with champagne and tears, her face glowing with the kind of pride that transcends 18 years of absence. I heard, she says simply, holding up the bottle like an offering. I know I don't have the right to celebrate with you, but… Come in, Marcus says before I can respond, and the words surprise all three of us. For a moment, we're almost like a normal family. 3 people gathered around our kitchen table, toasting a shared victory with sparkling wine that costs more than our usual grocery budget. Elena asks about the program, about Marcus's plans, about the professors he wants to study with. Her questions are informed, intelligent. She's clearly researched RISD extensively, probably spent hours reading about their curriculum and faculty. I'm so proud of you, she tells Marcus, and the words sound like a prayer, like absolution, like 18 years of regret and love compressed into 5 simple syllables. I know you are, he replies, and there's something different in his voice, not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement, recognition. I'm starting to believe that maybe you always were, even when you couldn't be here. They hug, tentative and brief, like 2 people learning a dance they should have known by heart but never had the chance to practice. But it's a start. Progress measured in moments instead of years, healing happening in increments so small they're almost invisible until you step back and see how far you've traveled. Later, after Elena leaves and the champagne glasses are washed and put away, Marcus finds me on the front porch. The evening is warm for October, Indian summer stretching the pleasant weather longer than it has any right to last. We sit in the rocking chairs I built when he was little, watching the street lamps flicker on one by one. She asked me something tonight, he says quietly, his voice barely audible over the sound of crickets and distant traffic. After you went inside to get the photo albums. My stomach clenches with the premonition that whatever comes next will change everything. What did she ask? She wants me to move to Providence with her. The words fall between us like stones into still water, creating ripples that spread outward and change the shape of everything. Says she's found a job there, a good one with a marketing firm. Says we could have the relationship we should have had all along. The world tilts sideways. After 18 years of being Marcus's everything, his father, his mother, his cheerleader, his safety net, I'm not ready to let go. I'm not ready to share him with the woman who walked away when sharing meant sleepless nights and dirty diapers and the 1,000 tiny sacrifices that build a childhood. But this isn't about what I'm ready for. This is about Marcus and his future and his right to choose the path that feels truest to him. What did you tell her? That I need to think about it. He rocks slowly in his chair, the motion rhythmic and soothing, like the heartbeat I used to count when he was small enough to sleep on my chest. She cried when I said that. Not sad crying, but relieved crying. Like she expected me to say no immediately. And you didn't. No, I didn't. He looks at me with eyes that hold 18 years of shared history, birthday mornings and bedtime stories, baseball practices and art shows, the 1,000 moments that make up a father-son relationship built on presence and commitment. What do you think I should do? The question I've been dreading and hoping for in equal measure, the moment when my son asks for my advice about the decision that will shape his future and possibly break my heart. The answer comes easier than I expected, rising up from some deep well of love that's bigger than my fear of losing him. I think you should follow your heart, I say, and mean it completely. I think you should choose the path that feels right for you, not the path you think will make me happy or hurt me least. I think you should know that whatever you choose, I'll support you. Even if I choose her? The words hit like a physical blow, but I don't flinch. Even then. Marcus is quiet for a long time, processing this permission to choose freely, without the weight of my expectations limiting his options. A car drives past, its headlights sweeping across our porch like a lighthouse beam, briefly illuminating our faces before moving on. She's different than I expected, he says finally. Not the villain I built up in my head, just sad, and trying really hard to figure out how to be part of my life without erasing the 18 years you were everything. She's not trying to replace me, Marcus. She's trying to find her place in the family we became without her. Is there room for her? In our family? The question hangs in the air between us like a bridge neither of us is sure we're ready to cross. Is there room for Elena in the life we've built? Can love expand to include the person who broke it? Can healing happen without erasure, forgiveness without forgetting? I don't know, I tell him honestly. But I think maybe that's not for me to decide. I think that's for all three of us to figure out together. Marcus nods slowly, considering this. The crickets sing their autumn song, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barks at shadows only it can see. Our neighborhood settles into evening quiet, the comfortable silence of a place where people know each other's stories and keep each other's secrets. I want to try, Marcus says finally. The family counseling thing, all three of us together. I want to see if we can figure out how to be a family that includes everyone who's supposed to be in it. Even if it's messy. Especially if it's messy, the best art comes from messy emotions, Dad. Maybe the best families do too. I reach over and squeeze his shoulder, this young man who's somehow learned wisdom I'm still grappling with, who's inherited the best parts of both his parents and combined them into something entirely his own. Whatever you decide about Providence, I tell him, I'm proud of you, not just for getting into RISD, but for being brave enough to give her a chance, for being big enough to see that love doesn't always look the way we expect it to. We sit there as the evening deepens around us, father and son, contemplating the future that spreads out before us like an unmapped territory. Change is coming whether we're ready for it or not. Marcus will go to college, Elena will continue building her place in our story, and I'll have to learn how to be a father who shares, instead of a father who possesses. But tonight, in the quiet comfort of our front porch, we're still exactly what we've always been, a family of two, complete in ourselves, strong enough to expand without breaking. The choice, when it comes, will be Marcus's to make. But sitting here beside him, watching him grow into the kind of person who can hold complexity and contradiction in his heart, without losing himself, I know that whatever he chooses will be right. Because I raised him to be brave enough to follow his heart, even when it leads him somewhere I'm afraid to go. June arrives with the kind of perfect evening that makes you believe in new beginnings. The air is warm but not humid, touched with the promise of summer and the gentle melancholy of endings. Roosevelt High's auditorium buzzes with the nervous energy of families gathering to watch their children graduate, to mark the moment when childhood officially becomes memory. Elena sits beside me in the third row, close enough that I can smell her perfume, something light and floral that reminds me of the girl she used to be. For brief moments, watching her laugh at the principal's bad jokes or tear up during the opening ceremony, I forget about the 18 years between then and now. I remember why I fell in love with her laugh, the way she cries at happy endings, the grace with which she moves through the world, even when that world has been unkind to her. Marcus gives the valedictorian speech, standing tall behind the podium in his cap and gown, looking every inch the young man I always hoped he'd become. His words are about second chances and the courage to rebuild, about art as a way of making sense of things that don't make sense, about family being more than blood. It's about the people who choose to show up, day after day, year after year, even when showing up is hard. His eyes find both of us in the crowd as he speaks, and I see the boy I raised and the man he's becoming, the child who asked why other kids had mommies and the young adult who's learning that some questions have complicated answers that take 18 years to understand. After the ceremony, we gather at the house for cake and pictures, awkward family photos that feel both natural and strange, like we're playing roles we're still learning how to inhabit. Elena helps me in the kitchen, moving around the space with surprising familiarity, remembering where I keep the serving platters and how I like to arrange things. He's decided, she says suddenly, not looking at me as she cuts perfect squares of graduation cake. My hand still on the stack of plates I'm pulling from the cabinet. What? About Providence. About us. She takes a shaky breath, still focused on the cake like it requires all of her concentration. He wants to stay close to home for college, says he's not ready to leave you yet. Relief floods through me like a dam bursting, followed immediately by guilt so sharp it takes my breath away. I should be gracious. I should be understanding. I should say something generous about Elena's offer and Marcus's right to choose and the complexity of blended families finding their rhythm. Instead, I just feel grateful. Selfishly, completely grateful that my son isn't ready to leave me behind. Elena, I start, but she cuts me off. Don't. Her voice is firm but not harsh. Don't apologize for being the parent he needed. Don't apologize for doing what I couldn't. Don't you dare apologize for 18 years of showing up when I didn't. She sets down the knife and finally looks at me, her eyes bright with tears that could be sadness or relief or some complicated mixture of both. He chose you, she continues, but not because he was rejecting me. He chose the stability you provided, the foundation you built together. He chose the father who never left, and that's exactly what he should have done. We stand in silence, washing dishes and processing the weight of his choice. The kitchen fills with the sounds of Marcus and his friends in the living room, their laughter echoing through the house like music. These are the sounds of a childhood well lived, of a young man surrounded by people who love him and whom he loves in return. But he also chose to give me space in his life, Elena says quietly, her voice barely audible over the running water. Carefully, slowly, on his own terms. He chose to try family counseling. He chose to let me be part of his graduation. He chose to see me as more than the woman who left. And what did you choose? I ask. She's quiet for a long moment, considering the question. I chose to stay. Not in Providence, here. I chose to build a life in the town I ran away from, to face the people I disappointed, to earn my place in the story I walked away from. She pauses, wiping her hands on the dish towel with deliberate care. I chose to love him without conditions, even if that means loving him from a distance. Through the kitchen window, I can see the backyard where Marcus learned to ride a bike, where we built a treehouse that's still standing after all these years, where we had countless conversations about life and art and the future he was working toward. This house holds 18 years of memories that Elena will never share, milestones she missed, moments that can't be reclaimed. But it also holds the possibility of new memories, different memories, the kind that come from healing instead of hurt, from choosing love over resentment, from being brave enough to build something new on the foundation of what was broken. He wants us all to go to Dr. Martinez next week, Elena says, together, says it's time to stop dancing around the hard conversations and start having them. Are you ready for that? No. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. I don't think I'll ever be ready to sit in a room with both of you and talk about the worst thing I ever did, But I'm willing. For him, I'm willing to be uncomfortable. Later, after the friends have gone home, and the dishes are cleaned, and Elena has driven back to her apartment above the bakery, Marcus finds me in the garage. I'm pretending to organize tools that don't need organizing, mostly because I need something to do with my hands while I process everything that's happened. "You okay?" he asks, settling on the workbench where he used to sit and watch me fix things when he was small. "Just thinking about her decision to see Tay?" I look up from the socket wrenches I'm arranging and rearranging. "About all of it. About the choice you made, about the family counseling, about what comes next." Marcus is quiet for a moment, swinging his legs like he used to when they didn't quite reach the floor. "I didn't choose you over her, you know. I chose the life we built together over the unknown of what we might build with her. There's a difference." "I know. Do you? Because I need you to know that choosing to stay doesn't mean I don't want her in my life. It means I want to figure out how to include her in the life we already have, instead of abandoning everything to start over somewhere else." The wisdom in his words takes my breath away. At 18, Marcus understands something about love and family and healing that took me decades to figure out. He understands that you don't have to choose between the people you love. Sometimes you can choose all of them, in different ways, with different boundaries, creating something new that honors what came before while making space for what might be. "She loves you, you know," I tell him. "She always has. She just didn't know how to show it in a way that felt safe for any of us." "I know, and you love her too, even though you pretend you don't." The statement hangs in the air between us, simple and complicated and absolutely true. I do love Elena, not the same way I loved her at 21, not with the desperate intensity of first love, but with the deeper understanding of someone who's learned that love doesn't always look the way you expect it to. "Yeah," I admit. "I do." "So, what are we going to do about that?" I laugh despite myself. "I think we're going to take it one day at a time, one therapy session at a time, one awkward family dinner at a time. We're going to figure out how to be a family that includes everyone who's supposed to be in it, even when it's messy and complicated and nothing like what we imagined." Marcus grins, the same grin he's had since he was 3 years old and figured out how to charm his way out of trouble. "The best art comes from messy emotions, Dad. Maybe the best families do too." As we turn off the garage lights and head back into the house, I realize that tonight marks more than Marcus's graduation. It marks the beginning of something new for all of us, not the neat, simple ending of a fairy tale, but the complex, hopeful beginning of a story that's still being written. Some choices, I understand now, aren't about choosing sides. They're about choosing to stay open to possibility, to healing, to the idea that love can expand without breaking, that families can include people who hurt each other if they're willing to do the work of forgiveness. Marcus chose me tonight, but he also chose her. He chose all of us, messiness and complications and all, and maybe that's the bravest choice of all. 12 months later, our lives have settled into a rhythm that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Marcus thrives at the community college, his portfolio growing stronger with each semester as he prepares for his junior year transfer to RISD. Elena has built a quiet life in our small town, her graphic design business growing through word of mouth and her careful attention to rebuilding the reputation she left behind 18 years ago. We're not a family in the traditional sense, we're something new, something harder to define. 3 people learning to navigate love and forgiveness and the complicated space between them, creating our own rules for how healing happens and what forgiveness looks like when it's earned instead of given. Elena and I don't talk about the past much anymore. We focus on Marcus, on his future, on being the parents he deserves now that we're both capable of it. We attend his art shows together, sit in adjacent seats at his basketball games, share the pride and worry that come with watching your child grow into himself. Sometimes I catch her watching me when she thinks I'm not looking. Her expression is careful, thoughtful, like she's trying to solve a puzzle that's missing crucial pieces. I wonder if she's remembering too, the way we used to fit together, the plans we made when we thought love was simple and the future was guaranteed. The family counseling sessions with Dr. Martinez happen every other Tuesday. They're awkward and painful and necessary, each one peeling back another layer of hurt and misunderstanding. We talk about Elena's depression, about my anger, about Marcus's complicated feelings toward the mother who left and the father who stayed. We talk about expectations and boundaries and the different ways people show love when they don't know how to say it out loud. It's messy work. Some weeks we make progress, others we see sides. aim to slide backward, but we keep showing up, keep doing the hard work of becoming a family that includes everyone who belongs in it. Do you think we could ever? Elena starts one evening as we watch Marcus play pickup basketball at the park. We're sitting on the bleachers, maintaining the careful distance we've established over the past year, close enough to feel like allies, far enough apart to respect the complexity of what we're building. The question hangs between us, unfinished but perfectly clear. Could we ever be more than co-parents learning to trust each other? Could we ever be more than two people united by their love for the same remarkable young man? I don't know, I answer honestly, because some questions deserve truthful responses even when the truth is uncertain. I don't know if we're the same people we were 18 years ago. We're not, she says, and there's certainty in her voice that makes me look at her more closely. Maybe that's the point. She's right, of course. We're not the scared kids who fell in love over shared art classes and midnight conversations about the future. I'm not the 21-year-old who thought love could fix everything, and she's not the 19-year-old who thought running away was the same thing as protecting the people she loved. We're middle-aged and careful and marked by years of choices both good and bad. We're parents who've learned that love is more complicated than passion, that commitment is more valuable than intensity, that showing up consistently matters more than grand gestures. Maybe that's enough to build something new on. Maybe love isn't about going back to who we were. Maybe it's about accepting who we've become and seeing if that's enough to create something worth having. Marcus asked me about us, Elena says quietly, her eyes following our son as he drives toward the basket with the determination that's defined him since childhood. About whether we're figuring things out. What did you tell him? That we're taking it slow, that we're learning how to be friends before we try to be anything else, that some things can't be rushed even when you want them to work. Friends. The word settles between us like a foundation stone, solid and unassuming, but essential. We're learning to like each other again, to enjoy each other's company without the pressure of romantic expectations or the weight of unresolved resentment. It's a good place to start. He worries about you, Elena continues, about whether you're lonely, whether you've given up too much of your own life to focus on his. The observation catches me off guard. I've spent 18 years being Marcus's everything, defining myself through his needs and achievements. The idea that he might worry about my happiness, my completeness as a person separate from his father, is both touching and unsettling. Are you? She asks. Lonely? I consider the question honestly. Am I lonely? I have Marcus, have the deep satisfaction of watching him become the person I always hoped he'd be. I have work that matters, a community that accepts me, a life that feels purposeful and generally fulfilling. But sitting here next to Elena, watching her profile as she follows Marcus's movements on the court, I realize that loneliness isn't always about being alone. Sometimes it's about missing the specific kind of companionship that comes from being truly known by another adult, from sharing the daily experience of life with someone who understands your history and your hopes. Sometimes, I admit. Not always. But sometimes. She nods like she understands exactly what I mean. Me too. The ADM. Isian creates a bridge between us, fragile but real. We're both people who've learned to live alone, to find contentment in solitude and purpose in work and parenting. But we're also people who remember what it felt like to share a life with someone, to have a partner in the daily navigation of hopes and fears and ordinary moments. Marcus makes a particularly good shot, and we both cheer automatically, our voices blending in parental pride. He looks over and grins, waving at both of us with the unconscious confidence of someone who knows he's loved and supported. He's happy, Elena says softly. Really happy. You did that. You gave him that. We're doing it, I correct gently. All three of us, in our own ways. The evening light is starting to fade, painting the basketball court in shades of gold and shadow. Soon Marcus will finish his game and join us, and we'll all go our separate ways, him to his homework and college applications, Elena to her apartment above the bakery, me to the house that's been home for all of us in different ways. But tonight, sitting on these bleachers with the woman I once loved and am learning to love again, I feel something I haven't experienced in years: possibility. Not the desperate, all-consuming possibility of young love, but the quieter, more sustainable possibility of mature affection built on understanding and shared purpose and the patient work of healing. Maybe we'll figure out how to be more than friends, maybe we'll discover that what we have now is exactly what we need, Either way, we'll do it together, all three of us, taking it one day at a time, one conversation at a time, one small act of trust at a time. Some new beginnings, I realize, don't announce themselves with fireworks or dramatic declarations. Sometimes they just settle into your life like seasons changing, so gradually you don't notice until you look around and realize everything is different, everything is better, everything is exactly as it should be. Marcus jogs over to us, sweaty and grinning and radiating the kind of contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you belong. Ready to head home? He asks, and the word home encompasses all of us now, includes all the places and people that make up his world. Ready, Elena and I say at the same time, and the synchronicity makes us laugh. As we walk toward our cars, Elena's fingers brush mine, accidental or intentional, I can't tell. But I don't pull away, and neither does she. Some bridges, it turns out, can be rebuilt. Not exactly as they were, but stronger for having been broken and carefully, patiently repaired. 4 years later, Marcus stands on the stage at the Rhode Island School of Design, diploma in hand, job offer from a prestigious Boston design firm already signed. The boy who used to trace letters in finger paint has become a man who creates campaigns that move people to tears, who transforms complex emotions into visual stories that speak universal truths. Elena and I sit together in the auditorium, not as a couple exactly, but as something more than friends. We've learned to navigate the space between what we were and what we might become, building trust in small increments, creating intimacy through shared purpose rather than grand gestures. The night before Marcus leaves for his new life in Boston, we gather on the front porch of the house that raised him. The three of us, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of possibility, marking another ending that's really a beginning. I used to be angry that I only had one parent, Marcus says quietly, his voice carrying the wisdom of someone who's learned to see his story clearly, without the distortion of childhood hurt or adolescent resentment. Now I realize I had one parent who was strong enough to be everything I needed, and another parent who loved me enough to know when she couldn't be. Elena reaches for my hand, tentative but hopeful, like she's done countless times over the past few years. I don't pull away. Her fingers are warm and familiar, reminding me of all the ways we've learned to touch each other again. Casual brushes during family dinners, brief squeezes during Marcus's particularly good performances, the gradual rebuilding of physical intimacy between two people learning to trust each other with their hearts. You both gave me different things, Marcus continues, and his voice holds the certainty of someone who's spent years in therapy learning to articulate complex truths. Dad, you gave me stability and unconditional love and the knowledge that some people will stay no matter what. Mom, you gave me art and creativity and the understanding that sometimes love means making impossible choices. He stands, tall and confident, and everything I hoped he'd become, and kisses Elena's forehead with the gentle affection of a son who's forgiven his mother, not because he had to, but because he chose to. Then he kisses mine with the deep love of a child who knows he was cherished every single day of his life. Thank you both for fighting for me in your own ways, he says. And thank you for finally fighting for each other. As Marcus walks into the house, probably to finish packing or call his girlfriend or do any of the 1,000 things that fill the life of someone about to embark on his own adult adventure, Elena's fingers tighten around mine. 18 years too late, she whispers, but there's no bitterness in it anymore. Just acknowledgement of time lost and time found, of the circuitous path that brought us back to each other. Maybe, I reply, watching the last light fade from the sky. Or maybe exactly when we were ready. The truth is, we needed those 18 years. I needed to learn how to be a father, how to put someone else's needs before my own, how to love without possessing. Elena needed to learn how to heal, how to forgive herself, how to love without fear. Marcus needed to grow up with the security of knowing he was wanted and cherished, needed to develop his own identity before he could integrate his mother's story into his understanding of himself. We all needed time to become the people we are now, not the scared kids who fell in love too young and broke under the pressure of responsibilities we weren't equipped to handle, but the adults who've learned that love is patient and forgiveness is possible and family can be whatever you're brave in. Or to build. I love you, Elena says suddenly, the words falling into the evening air like stones into still water, creating ripples that spread outward and change everything. I love you too, I reply, and it's the truth, not the desperate, consuming love of 21, but something deeper and more sustainable. The love of two people who've seen each other at their worst and chosen to stay anyway, who've learned that commitment isn't about perfect moments but about showing up consistently for all the imperfect ones. The porch light flickers on automatically, casting a warm glow over the space where we've had so many conversations, awkward ones and honest ones and necessary ones. This house has been the setting for 18 years of single parenthood, but it's also been the backdrop for our slow, careful reconciliation, the place where we learn to be friends again before we learn to be anything more. What happens now? Elena asks. Now we figure it out as we go, I say. We support Marcus in his new life, we continue the work we've been doing in therapy, we see if what we're building together can sustain the test of daily life instead of just the milestone moments. Are you scared? Terrified, I admit. But good scared. The kind of scared that means you're about to do something important. Elena laughs, and the sound is like music I haven't heard in years but remember perfectly. Good scared, I like that. Through the window, we can see Marcus moving around his childhood bedroom, packing the last of his belongings. Tomorrow he'll drive to Boston and start his adult life, carrying with him everything we've given him, my steadiness and Elena's creativity, my practical love and her artistic vision, the security of knowing he comes from people who fought for him even when they couldn't fight for each other. Do you think we'll make it? Elena asks. This time? I can't. Side of the question seriously. We're different people than we were 18 years ago, shaped by loss and healing and the hard work of becoming better versions of ourselves. We've learned to communicate instead of assuming, to ask for help instead of suffering in silence, to see each other clearly instead of projecting our own fears and needs onto each other. But more than that, we've learned to love Marcus together, not as rivals competing for his affection, but as partners united in wanting what's best for him. If we can build on that foundation, if we can extend the teamwork we've developed as co-parents into the more intimate work of being partners in all the ways that matter, then maybe we have a chance. I think, I say finally, that we're going to be okay, not perfect, but okay, and maybe okay is enough. Elena leans against my shoulder, and I breathe in the scent of her hair, the familiar perfume she still wears, the combination of everything that makes her Elena. We sit there as full darkness settles around us, two people who've learned that love isn't always linear, that sometimes you have to lose something completely before you can appreciate what it meant, that the best stories are the ones where nobody gets everything they want, but everyone gets what they need. Inside, Marcus calls out that he's finished packing, that tomorrow will come early, that maybe we should all get some sleep. In a few minutes, we'll go inside and say goodnight and retreat to our separate bedrooms. Elena still maintains her apartment above the bakery, still moves carefully in and out of our shared space, still respects the boundaries we've established as we navigate this new version of us. But tonight, on this porch where so much of our healing has happened, we allow ourselves to imagine a future where those careful boundaries might shift, where the love we're rebuilding might grow into something sustainable and joyful and complete. The sun disappears behind the mountains, but the sky holds its light for just a moment longer. Like hope, like second chances, like love that's learned to be patient with its own timing. Our son chose me once, 18 years ago, in a basketball gym filled with his artwork. But tonight, watching Elena smile at the future we might build together, I think maybe we can all choose each other. Not because we have to, not because of guilt or obligation or the pressure to make up for lost time, but because we want to. Because what we're creating together, this careful, complicated, beautifully imperfect family, is worth choosing again and again, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one quiet act of love at a time. Finally,